And welcome in. It is the Wager Alarm live stream on this Friday night, November the 22nd, 2019. Craig Mish and Rob Trea are going through all the games tonight in both college and pro football. Of course, we have a lot to get to with our picks for the Golden Nugget football contest and also the Westgate Super Contest. And Rob, thanks for filling in for Howard tonight. What's going on?
Nothing much, Craig. Thanks for having me. I'll hopefully hold down Howard's seat until he gets back next week. Best I can do.
I'm sure you will. I mean, we had a great week last week in the Golden Nugget contest. We went 7-0 against the spread, and then we went 4-0 in the Super Contest. And then, Rob, we left it up to the Chargers on Monday night to give us a 5-0. And like many people before us, the Chargers end up hurting you. And it's just that kind of season for the Chargers where they end up burning someone along the line, and we got burned last week. That was the case with us.
Yeah, it looks like Father Time has finally caught up to Philip Rivers out in L.A. at this point. Well, it'll be an interesting offseason, obviously, for Anthony Lynn and the Chargers, but solid week for both of you guys. I mean, it's not that easy going 11-1 across both contests. That's printing tickets and money at that point.
Yeah. Good week for us. It's second time we've gone 7-0 in this contest, and now we are sitting above 500, trying to get back to about 56, 57%. And let's kind of take a look at the games. We'll start off by going through our picks for the Golden Nugget football contest. And first of all, let's just kind of talk about college football in general, Rob. At this stage of the game, I think we pretty much know who the contestants are for this championship in terms of the college football playoff. There's about 6 or 7 teams that legitimately still have a chance to get in it. And one of those teams that's going to play this week, at least it's the marquee game, at least it feels like the marquee game in college football, is Ohio State taking on Penn State. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Penn State was sitting there right in the driver's seat, Rob. All Penn State had to do was basically knock off Minnesota and then play Ohio State. They would have been up against it anyway, but with a chance to get into the college football playoff with a win over Ohio State. But this line's 18.5, and we'll get into that because that is one of our picks this week. But, Rob, even if Penn State beats Ohio State, I don't know that will be enough to get them into the college football playoff. What do you think?
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. I think it obviously comes down to who's going to get in the championship game. With a win against Ohio State, that's obviously going to help out in the Big 12 race. But at this point, it's when you lose, right? Which unfortunately happens in college football. If you lose the last week, it's probably more damning than you losing in the first week. So Minnesota taking them out, and obviously they fell victim the same way, going down to Iowa and losing last weekend. So it's pretty much survival of the fittest in the Big Ten at this point. And Ohio State looks like they're in the driver's seat in the East, and then who knows what happens in the West at this point between Wisconsin and Minnesota too.
Yeah, and Ohio State will still have to play Michigan, and the Wolverines are starting to play better, at least from what they did in the first month or two of the season. But this is going to be one of the picks that we're going to use this week, Rob. And when I look at it, Ohio State, like Clemson and like LSU, are really surging late in the season offensively. And Penn State, although they did score late in that game against Minnesota, I think the strength of their team is defense, and I really can't find any conviction here to think that Penn State can cover this line. It's definitely tempting, and I think that's the way that most people are getting pushed into thinking, hey, how is it possible that Penn State can be almost 3 touchdown underdogs against Ohio State? But you saw a game, you were there in person, Rob, where they put up a 70, they put up 60s and 50s, and it reminds me a little bit of kind of what's happening with Clemson now, where Clemson has just kind of woken up and all of a sudden has decided to turn it to the next level. So our first pick of the 7 picks in the Golden Nugget contest is, in fact, going to be Ohio State tomorrow at noon, minus 18.5.
Yeah, and you're not going to hear a disagreement from me at this point. The last time, and you think about it, that Ohio State had trailed this year was 5-0 in week 4.
Wow.
So them taking competitive snaps in the second half will be interesting, but the talent on the Ohio State field, on the Ohio State sidelines, is very, very impressive, especially with Chase Young coming back this week too.
Yeah, and that'll be a big factor as well. Chase Young still in the mix for the first overall pick in the draft. It probably will have to do with whoever ends up having the first pick in the draft, because certainly there's a couple of teams like Washington, Cincinnati, Miami still sort of in that mix to have the first overall pick, and so we'll see. So that'll be the first of the 7 picks in college football. Let's kind of move on to a couple of other ones. West Virginia is our second pick, Rob, in the Golden Nugget contest. Now, In the Golden Nugget, when these are released, it's usually Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday evening. And so they're playing Oklahoma State, a team that we've actually used a lot this season in the contest, and they've been pretty good to us. OSU is a phenomenal home team under Mike Gundy. They run the ball like no other team in the country and Chuba Hubbard. But then all of a sudden, the word came down yesterday that Spencer Sanders, there was some internet stuff, there was some Twitter stuff saying that people saw him around campus with a cast on his hand. And indeed, that turned out to be the case, as he had surgery and he is out indefinitely. He's going to miss their last 2 games. There's still a chance that he could play in their bowl game, but he is out of this game. That line switched immediately. It went down from West Virginia +7 to +6. Now it's 5.5. And so a lot of these times, Rob, I'm just looking for value in games, and it would appear that there is some value taking West Virginia. Not the best offense in the world, but Oklahoma State does it really more with the running game than they do with the passing game. So we're just kind of hoping to keep this thing close and take advantage of a 1.5 misstep, which is basically what happens when Spencer Sanders is out. But I kind of feel like he's worth more than a 1.5. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. If you take a look at Oklahoma State last week too, after losing Tylan Wallace, who is their main playmaker outside of Chuba, they struggled against Kansas. They might have put up points, but it took a while to get there. And Kansas isn't a vaunted defense for sure. But traveling on the road, like you said, out of Oklahoma State up to Morgantown, fresh off a 2-touchdown underdog win, you can understand that West Virginia's kind of turning around their season, I guess, with new coach Neil Brown.
Yeah, they'll have to win a couple games here at the end to make that fully come to fruition there, but we're going to take the +7 there. So that's pick number 2. Our third pick is going to be a little bit of a dicey one, and really what we've done here, Rob, is the last couple of weeks. What we've done is we've gone with a little bit of a home team biggest game in their stadium in a long time narrative, and we're 2 for 2 on that. So we went with Minnesota 2 weeks ago. We went with Baylor last week. I know they fell apart in the end, but Baylor getting those points was a monster.
Yep.
Look, Central Florida has been notoriously a team that is phenomenal against the spread, but not this year. They've looked really human, and especially on the road. Rob, Tulane's football team in general over the last decade has been a nothing, and they don't play any defense. But all of a sudden this year, they found some life. They're still not getting a lot of respect in this game. There's certainly a chance that UCF just runs them out of the stadium. There's no doubt. But this will be the most pumped up these kids have been in New Orleans in a long time. This is the biggest game they've played with a chance to win and get to a decent bowl game in a long time. And so they're getting 6 points in this game. We're going to ride with the Green Wave in this one. Take a little bit of a shot.
Yeah, another home dog that's always live. UCF has the speed, and like you said, they've been a cover monster, but not this year, losing first on the road at Pitt, which was really surprising, and then obviously they've lost last week at Tulsa. So I think you're definitely in a good shape here, Craig, going with Tulane, who can run the ball very well. So.
Yeah, they run a lot, and so you got to hope that there's no 2-point conversions or any of that nonsense. It was kind of 6.5 going back to 6. I think I see solid 6 at this point. So our third pick in the Golden Nugget football contest will be Tulane plus the points, +6. Our third pick is actually Tulsa. We're going to go with Tulsa here. As you mentioned, they looked really good last week. This is a very good season for them, one that we haven't seen in quite some time. Again, a chance to play in a later bowl game as opposed to one of those early bowl games in December where the score is like 60-50, and playing against a Houston team that I thought did a really good job rallying after losing 2 of their best players, their quarterback and their wide receiver. But Rob, it has really gone south for them over the last few weeks. Their defense is really starting to fall apart here. The line was 2.5, kind of going back and forth between 2.5 and 3. Now it's a solid 3, which is back to where the contest had it at 3. So we're hoping in this one that Tulane just continues this momentum. Not a great spot, honestly, for them coming off that huge win last week. And usually you want to fade a team that comes off with such a big win. But this will be another one for us. We'll take Tulsa -3 tomorrow night.
Yeah, the letdown spot, I don't know if that will hold true here. Obviously, they had a bye week last week, so they had some time to regroup. But they've been ultra competitive this year. I mean, they've played SMU, Memphis, and Cincy, and been within a score of them late in the game. And they honestly should have beat SMU too at a horrible fourth quarter blow up. So a win over UCF last week and getting 3 this week against kind of a depleted Houston squad's a good way to go.
All right, so that's let's see, that's our fourth pick. We're going to use 5 games in college, just like we did last week. The last 2 weeks, we've gone with 5 games in the Golden Nugget Football Contest. By the way, if you're picking 7 games, you really could mix them up any way that you want. You can use pro and you can use college. We've done some 4 and 3, but the NFL has really been sideways over the last few weeks, and so we've been leaning more on the college game. And so our fifth pick. And this is one that we're going to try and take advantage of a potential situation here. And still, I don't think a bad pick overall.
No.
But Utah State is getting 8 points against Boise State. This is a pretty solid rivalry, maybe not to the extent of a BYU, but Utah State is getting 8, and they're in a situation where Boise State is not a great road team, and they're also down to either their second or third or even fourth string quarterback. No one really knows for sure. There's not going to be an announcement on who is going to play for the Broncos until right before the game tomorrow night, so you're not going to be able to take advantage of this line. I will say this, it's leaning toward their backup being able to play. Las Vegas is very smart. This line has gone from 8 to 8.5, so that tells me maybe this morning when we made this pick, if we would have waited a little bit later in the day, you would have kind of seen this. And that's why sometimes when you're paying attention to games in college and pro, before Matthew Stafford was out, that line moved. Before Matt Ryan was out, that line moved. They kind of get an idea as to which way these things are going to go. But needless to say, we're hoping for an upset tomorrow night. Another underdog at home in college, as we'll take Utah State tomorrow night, +8 against Boise State.
Yeah, and Craig, it's a pretty big game for Utah State too. A win forces kind of a 3-way tie along in the Mountain West Conference, so it doesn't allow Boise to go straight all the way through to the conference, and kind of depends on what Air Force does earlier in the day. So Jordan Love as a QB, with the talent that he has there, taking another live home dog is also a good idea.
Yeah, Rob, Love this year has not been nearly what anybody thought. His numbers are going to be really ugly, touchdown versus interception at the end of the season. And he was projected to go maybe as the number 1 or number 2 overall pick. That's quieted a little bit, and I think Herbert has jumped ahead of him. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I think the bowl game coming up, and I think that combine could change everything. This is the kind of game that could also move him up a little bit. It's been disappointing, but it feels like it's trending toward him being one of these super duper combine guys that gets moved up because of that, because his stats this season aren't really that good.
Yeah, another guy kind of out of the blue, just like a Josh Allen who came out of Wyoming, also from the Mountain West. So you're looking at talent at that point comparatively. The wide receivers at Utah State aren't going to compare to the same guys at Ohio State. So Tate might not look good, but you get him in a combine setting, they're going to have the right talent there.
Right. Okay, so that caps off our 5 college picks for the week. So again, West Virginia +7, Tulane +6, Tulsa -3, Ohio State -18.5, and Utah State +8. Those are our 5. And so here are our 2 picks for the Golden Nugget contest. And again, we're trying to get the very best lines here. Now, a pick that we're going to use in both contests, and we'll talk about this extensively. Now, Rob, this to me is one that we're going to lose this one because I don't get it. This is one of those lines that I looked at. Now, I felt that way last week about the Jets too, and that was a win. Usually when we go with a game that looks just so wrong, it's usually a loser. And ironically, I could not understand. And by the way, the Redskins, who were favored last week against the Jets -2.5, the Redskins will not be favored in an NFL game probably for a year after that performance last week. I don't know how they were favorite, and they were getting bet up in that week too. I don't understand how it went from 1.5 to 2.5. This is the one for me, the Giants. I'm not a Giants fan. I don't think the Giants are good at all. And I think that playing against a good offensive team, they're going to be in big trouble. The Bears' defense has been okay. It hasn't been as good as it was last season, but it's a solid squad. It's a top 10, top 15 squad in the NFL. I've watched enough Bears football in the last 6 weeks. I cannot make the Bears more than a point or 2 favorite over anyone in the NFL, Rob. And they're laying 6.5 points to the Giants in this game. I have a feeling when tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock, we're going to check the Super Contest, and they're going to be the number 1 pick team. Road dogs in the NFL are covering an incredible amount this season, almost 65%. But it just looks so wrong. When I looked at it, I made the Bears a 3.5, 4-point favorite. I'm getting almost a touchdown in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Giants go up 10-3, really? I don't know. Maybe, is it just, Rob, that the Giants defense is that bad? It has to be. I can't see anything else.
Yeah, I mean, especially from the Sunday night display against the Rams, where Trubisky and squad really didn't put up much of a fight.
Nothing.
They had 30 plus plays in the first quarter and 0 points, right? So Mitch's little hip injury will be really interesting. But if you're taking a touchdown here against a team that honestly they just can't score, they can't do anything. Where you have talent in Jones and obviously Saquon's around, and Sterling Shepard should be back this week. You're going to get a pretty good fight from a good offense.
Yeah, and Slayton's been a nice addition to them too. The other thing with the Bears, they just don't score in the first quarter, ever. So if the Giants can get anything going at all, you get yourself a 7 or even a 3. I think you got a good shot here.
Yep.
So our first pick will be the Giants plus 6.5 in the Golden Nugget contest. Last week, my favorite pick, which we used in both contests, was the Falcons getting 5.5 points against the Carolina Panthers. And this week, I am going right back against them because it is a week-to-week league, Rob, and I don't ever look at the week before as something as an indicator.
No grudges.
I watched the Falcons play 2 weeks ago against the Saints. They played better defense, but the Saints did get the ball in the red zone 7 times and kicked 4 field goals. So It's not like they didn't stop. They stopped the Saints. They did a great job in the red zone. Last week, I give them all the credit in the world, although they picked off Kyle Allen 4 times. Nobody in the NFL's thrown more interceptions than Kyle Allen in the last 3 weeks. So does that just build into my narrative, or does it make a case for Atlanta? I'm not sure. I don't know how Atlanta goes from 3 weeks ago looking like the worst team in the NFL to being more than a 3-point favorite against anybody in the NFL. And I get it. Winston, he's going to make mistakes. He's probably going to end up costing his team the game. But I think Tampa Bay has a good shot to cover this game, and I don't think that Atlanta should be more than a point or 2 favorite at all, if at all, in this game. 2 weeks ago, this is a pick 'em game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go right back, and I'm going to fade Atlanta in this one. I'm going to say congratulations to what they've accomplished, but just because this coach has given up the defensive play calling, that is not enough to me to lay 4.5 points. So I want to go to Tampa in this one and hope that they lose by a field goal in the end. What about you, Rob? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Tampa traveled up to Seattle and lost in overtime, lost the cover there. But you would figure that game was a little bit more difficult. You had interdivision here, no Hooper, no Freeman. The Falcons are kind of shorthanded. And like you said, their defense, although they're not allowing points, they're certainly allowing a ton of yards. With the Panthers kept driving down the field last week, as long as the Saints. So I think with the Bucs, you're definitely looking at a game, especially getting 4.5 here. It's probably the right side.
Yeah, you're not getting 4.5 anymore. The line is 3.5 virtually everywhere. And so, trying to take advantage of some of that line. And again, I'm not trying to say that the Buccaneers are a good team, but how many games have the Bucs not been in this year? Not that many, because they still have the slinger there. They have the gunslinger. This guy's just going to keep chucking it up. Their defense is not going to be able to stop Atlanta's. Okay, I mean, look, those defensive backs are going to get burned. We know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I do think that Tampa has a good shot to keep this thing close. They're still trying, clearly. They have a coach that still wants to win. He's still trying too.
Yep.
So we'll take the Bucs plus 4.5. So the Giants and Bucs go in the Golden Nugget along with West Virginia, Tulane, Tulsa, Ohio State, and Utah State. So we shove that to the side. Those are our 7 picks for tomorrow, and we'll post the ticket on the Fantasy Alarm and Wager Alarm website. Now over to the Super Contest, Rob, we go. And certainly we could talk about any of the games this week. But we'll go back to the 2 picks that we just used. We're going to use them again in the Super Contest. We've got the Giants, although we're not getting 6.5, we're getting 6. Look, that's a key number for a push, but it doesn't sway us enough to not take the same team. We're still going to do it, so we're taking the Giants there. We have the same line with Tampa Bay at the plus 4.5. Okay, so those are our first 2. Our third pick is going to be the Jets plus the 3. This is another one of those picks that's extremely popular, so it makes me a little bit nervous this week. A part of me thinks that everything that we saw from the Jets last week isn't legit, and they beat a really bad team. But getting 3 points at home for the Jets, you don't know week to week which Raiders team is going to show up. They're one of the more unpredictable teams in the NFL, although they have played really well. Really hard to back teams coming off wins against bad teams, but New York is still getting 3 points at home, and we're going to have to hope for some turnovers on the Oakland side.
Yeah, to your point, Craig, about playing bad teams, I mean, the Raiders are coming off a win against the Bengals squad that was into that game late, right? So
Yeah.
traveling cross country, West Coast to East Coast, with the amount of travel that the Raiders have had this year, has been pretty crazy. But it almost feels like a look ahead spot too, because next week they'll get the Chiefs for a big AFC West game. So Jets home dogs, anywhere you can get a dog at this point in the NFL is a good spot, especially a home dog.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to do that. And look, I mean, that's just one of those games that I look at it and there's just you have to pick 5. That's just what it comes down to. You don't feel comfortable with some of the other ones. So Jets +3 at home. We're going to fade Washington this week. We're just going to take the Lions in a straight fade. This isn't really a pick for Detroit as opposed to a pick against Washington. But the Lions, look, with Driscoll, have looked pretty good. The Lions are going to be required to go up some points in this game, and as long as they do, I think we're okay. If we're in a close game, they're not going to cover this 3.5 point spread.
Yeah.
But we're kind of hoping that the same thing plays out as last week.
Yeah, and with the Redskins, you're pretty much getting Bill Callahan football. Run the ball the first 2 times and hope Dwayne Haskins finds somebody on third down. The Lions made a pretty decent defense, and the Cowboys look average last week with Jeff Driscoll being able to run the ball. So I think the Lions, like you said, you're playing against the Redskins at this point. If they get up early, the game's pretty much over because the Redskins just can't find a way to score points late.
No, they can't. And Detroit's defense is not nearly as good as the Jets will be. We understand that. But I think that they are able to do enough. And look, I just can't trust anything that Washington's doing right now. So
Yeah.
Lions -3.5. The Lions have been in every game. They've lost a lot of close games this season, including the one to Dallas. Weird going for 2. Going for 2. I don't understand why they're doing this, Rob. This whole looking at the metrics thing. Like
Yeah.
you're going to be down 7 if you score a touchdown and kick an extra point. Instead, they go for 2. They don't get it. That gives Dallas the cover. It's got to make it berserk if you had Detroit last week. But that's what happened. And then the final pick is we're going to go to Sunday Night Football. And we're going to take the 49ers -3.5. Current line is 49ers -3. I have had a hard time going against Green Bay this year, Rob. I got to tell you. Virtually every time I've gone against the Packers, they've burned me.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't see a great team there in Green Bay. I know they got off to a great start, but I don't see a great team. They have that commitment to run now with Aaron Jones, and he's had a fantastic season. But to me, this is a great environment, a Sunday night game. The 49ers got to be jacked up. It's a historic, 2 franchises going at it. 49ers put themselves basically as the number 1 seed in the NFC. If they win this game, it's like, I mean, they almost have to get it if they win this one, and not a lot in front of them after this. So we're going to take the 49ers -3.5. I love 3, man. Wish that was 3, and in a worst-case scenario, get a push. Kind of like last night's game with Houston and Indianapolis. The 3s look great for Houston, 3.5 not so much. So we'll take the 49ers as our 5th pick here.
Yeah, and you just got to hope at this point that everybody who's on that injured list comes back healthy at this point between, Sanders, Kittle, and, Deebo Samuel was actually on it earlier this week too. But the last time the Packers traveled to the West Coast was a no-show, right, against the Chargers, your favorite team. So got to kind of hope for the same, especially off the bye week. Maybe they're just a little rusty at this point, but the Niners D can kind of recuperate after that loss Monday night against the Seahawks.
Yeah, we always make sure to take a couple dogs. We got 3 this week. So super contest picks, and again, we'll post them on Wager Alarm, Fantasy Alarm. And here they are: Giants +6, Jets +3, Bucks +4.5, Lions -3.5, and 49ers -3.5. Okay, so Robin, the last couple of minutes, any NFL lines or any other interesting topics around the league that you're looking at here?
I like to play totals a little bit,
Okay.
not necessarily sides. Like we were talking about earlier, the whole Tampa-Atlanta game. Total's 52, which is pretty crazy to think that Tampa only has a team total of 24 in that game predicted. That's a side that I would take a look at, especially Atlanta giving up so many yards. They're going to break at some point. It's not the whole Matt Patricia Patriots defense from back in the day. The bend but don't break. Atlanta's going to break at some point. They're just not talented enough on defense. So.
Yeah, the Bucks have gone over more than any team in the NFL this season, and so you can't make their total too high. Interesting unders also. I mean, that one of the ones that I was looking at earlier, and it's gone down quite a bit. You're getting it in the 30s, but I mean, how in the world does Pittsburgh and Cincinnati go over that total on Sunday? I mean, where is the explosiveness? Where are the players on that team? And I mean, you think about it from Cincinnati's perspective, they're missing their quarterback and best receiver from last year, from 1 year ago.
Yeah.
You take them away from the equation. We know what Cincinnati's looked like defensively, and that's what could push this over.
Yeah.
You remove them. Look what you're removing from the Pittsburgh offense from a year ago. 1 year ago right now, you're removing the quarterback, both receivers, the center, and the running back. I mean, it's incredible. So to me, does Pittsburgh score 2 touchdowns in this game? I don't see how they do it. Yeah. So it feels like an under to me in that one, but that thing's creeping way down under 40, 39 points or things like that. Any other games before we get out of here?
Kind of interested about the Finns again. I backed them earlier in the year, and then Ryan Fitzpatrick took the bench. Finns at the Browns, the over there would be kind of interesting, with the Browns essentially having no pass rush now that Myles Garrett decides using helmets is a good idea. Not exactly the best way to go about handling a dispute. So with no pass rush, Ryan Fitzpatrick's actually kind of a serviceable quarterback, and you got the Finns defense, which isn't going to scare anybody, and hopefully after last week, Mayfield and OBJ can kind of keep getting right, because they look like they had a good week last week.
Yeah, they do. Dolphins against the spread have been okay, not the worst. They've been okay, but they've been great in the first half against the spread. They've been very close in every game, and then the wheels fall off. In the second half, it looks like they're starting to sit guys in the second half. And look, from Miami's point of view, Flores, the coach, has done a really good job. Yeah. But the light has to go on realistically at this point. They are sitting right on the edge of getting a super high pick. And I don't know that it makes a lot of sense for them to roll off 2 more wins or 3 more wins the rest of the season. They got their 2 wins, and I would assume that would be it. But they do play Cincinnati, Rob, coming up here in a few weeks. So that's going to be the game really to determine the number 1 overall pick for sure, because then things could get crazy at the end of the season. All right. Well, Rob, thanks again for sitting in on the live stream tonight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all your input with all of the games. Tell people where we can follow you on Twitter and catch your work over on Wager Alarm and Fantasy Alarm.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me, Craig. Really appreciate it. You can find me at Wager Alarm. I write every week, usually the Friday and Saturday. You'll get some NFL bets as well as some prop bets for Sunday morning. You can find me on Twitter at alldayevery365. Usually talking about pretty much any sport. I'm really kind of all encompassing, so no topic really shies away from me.
All right. And also want to thank our producer, as always, tonight, watching a little live stream, and on the side, watching a little Paw Patrol. Of course, that is the salesman, Matt Sells. So for Rob and for Matt, I am Craig Mish. Hope you guys have a great weekend watching all of the college and pro games. Make sure you head on over to Wager Alarm to check out our tickets, and also make sure you check out our good friend Howard Bender, who is going to be by my side on Sunday in the DraftKings one of the championship weekends they have coming up this weekend. I think it's the Bash at the Beach or something like that. Something along those lines. So I'll be checking out Howard on Sunday in person here in South Florida. Rob, you have a good weekend as well. And thank you guys for watching the Wager Alarm live stream. For Rob, I'm Craig. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you again Thanksgiving week next Tuesday.